I would have loved to take that series. Or that game. I would have loved to take that game. Would have been a good sweep, Not going to happen. Let's get to it. Episode 681 of the podcast. Knicks Pacers Game 3. Welcome to the podcast. I'm your host, RJ Carbone. You are listening to BD4, where there's no better way to get your Yankees and Knicks analysis. We also do MMA. Yanks every series, Knicks every game, MMA on occasion. Let's get to it.
Anthony for three. That one goes down, and the game is tied.
I'd like to take this chance to apologize to absolutely nobody.
The Yankees are champions of baseball. Shaking and baking. Right here on the neophyte.
You guys trying to close the show.
She was doing a great job of feeding that. It's over.
Don't you regret not coming to the Knicks? Don't you regret not coming to the Knicks?
Game over. World Series over. Yankees win. The Yankees win.
All right. Episode 681. Knicks Pacers. But the Knicks drop game 3 in Indiana. Hickville. Yeah, obviously I would have loved, I think any Knicks fan would have loved to go up 3-0. Especially in front of their fans. In front of, the Indiana Pacer fans. The Pacers are one of the franchises that I just fucking despise. I fucking hate them. I hate the Pacers. I hate their fans. I hate everything about Indiana except for Caitlin Clark, which when I found out she was getting drafted to the Fever, and I love to hate the Indiana Pacers. It's, again, said it last series. If you thought I hated the Philadelphia fans, I hate these hicks, these stupid hipsters. So it would have been lovely to go up 3-0 in front of these losers and have the chance to sweep them on Sunday. The day of the Lord. Which, speaking of, that place was a church tonight. I don't know if it was just me. I don't know if I'm just a spoiled Knicks fan used to Madison Square Garden. But that place, at times in this game, was as quiet as anything I've seen. You could hear a mouse crawl. You could hear a pin drop. And I'm sitting here. How the fuck aren't they screaming their heads off? I thought Indiana was a basketball city. It was, dead silent at points in this game. Unbelievably silent at points in the game where you thought it'd be pretty loud. But they let little miniature Knicks runs, so not impressed with their team, not impressed with their fan base. Maybe I'm just, again, a spoiled Knicks fan, used to the world's most greatest arena. The world's most famous arena. Sorry. Tough loss for the Knicks. They got off to an abysmal start. A very abysmal start. And it got a little bit better. They were down by 10, was it double figures early? Whatever it was, they managed to climb within 8, 28-20 at the end of the first quarter. Second quarter came, it was tough, but they performed a little better and they pulled close by halftime, but then they let go of the rope a little bit in the final minutes before halftime. They let Pascal Siakam get hot late. We'll talk about that. It's 63-58 Indiana at the break. Third quarter was Dante DiVincenzo's quarter. He has himself a huge third quarter, 17 points alone in the period. That keeps the Knicks in the game. It's 90-85. The Knicks are up 5 points after 3. And they go up by as much as 9 points, I think it was, in the fourth. Fourth quarter was crazy. I mean, you started off with Dante DiVincenzo picking up a huge block, and then on the other end, knocking down a 3 right after that. You got Deuce to Dante, one pass over. Dante knocks it down. And, Josh Hart with a very smart foul on Pascal Siakam because that bum can't shoot a free throw to save his life, much like this Knicks team. Deuce McBride knocks down a big 3 at one point. But then Indiana goes on this run. Brunson commits a very poor turnover, bad pass. Alec Burks kind of cools off after his hot start. But late in the game, few minutes left, Brunson takes a 3, knocks it down to tie the game at 106 all. Kind of the last euphoria type moment for the Knicks because poor defensive rebounding just ended their hopes in the final minutes of the game. You get a Brunson miss, the Brunson miss, at the end, trying to draw contact and just didn't work. You get the Nembhard make, and the Knicks lose to the Pacers 111-106 in a game where they didn't play well in, but still managed to come within 5 points. But yeah, I didn't like a lot of this. I thought Brunson was very idiotic late, trying to sell the whistle versus looking for an open teammate. Dante DiVincenzo was hot, and he was right there. Find him. Hit him. I thought that was a very stupid, very bad decision by Brunson to try and hunt the foul. I will say, again, I'm not impressed with this Pacer defense is an abomination. It's really bad. It's a defense where it's lunch. It's been lunch for the Knicks all series. I don't know what they were thinking. They're not a defense that cheats much. They don't help much, but they were helping off Dante DiVincenzo, who was the one guy outside Jalen Brunson who you just don't help off of. They helped off him, and that helped him score 35 points on 7 of 11 from 3. And Dante, man, I feel bad because I didn't give him enough credit last episode. Barely talked about him. He was great. And tonight he was the best he's been. Just performance throughout quarters 1 to 4 wise. 35 points. He's been so good since the Julius Randle injury. I keep going back to that because that's really where he started to take on more volume. And ever since then, he's been coming through so big whenever Brunson has a bad night, whenever Brunson's not playing, he's the guy. And he's always, he slides into that role just fine. And he's been Brunson's sidekick since the injury. And he continues to do good things. And you needed just one other Knick to come through tonight for them to be in the game. And that was Alec Burks, who was really, really shining. And he got the 1 minute the other night. Thibs didn't like what he saw. Done. Tonight he comes in. And, pretty right away, making positive impact. I thought the Alec Burke minutes were very promising tonight. Finally. I don't know how he just suddenly comes in when this is a guy who hasn't really played real minutes in months. He comes in and he drops 14 points on efficient shooting. The defense wasn't a problem with him. That was important because now you're showing Tom Thibodeau that he can expand the rotation now. Thibs is going to go back to Burks. You can count on that after seeing what he did tonight. Especially with the loss of Bojan Bogdanovic, putting a spacer like Burks out there, and Burks showing Thibs, hey, I still got something. That's important. You're going to see him out there in those small ball lineups next to Brunson because that's going to help him with the spacing in the half court. Deuce McBride tonight was a little bit better. He reached double figures. Still not great. You know, he was missing. He was inconsistent with his shooting. He missed the shot late in the game, obviously. He just hasn't been the same since the Philly series. This hasn't been a Deuce McBride series. Obviously, TJ McConnell has been a problem for him. Although tonight, you didn't even hear TJ McConnell's name. You didn't even hear Obi Toppin's name. Like the Philly bench, the Pacer bench was fucking abysmal. But Deuce McBride was better, but still not very good. But again, his standards have been raised, right? I think, I don't know where we're going to start. Well, I guess the free throw shooting. I mean, the foul shooting continues to be an abomination. I already used that adjective, but like, it's been atrocious. It's been abysmal. It's been disgusting. You just, I mean, there's nothing else to say. You can't pick apart foul shooting. Just stop leaving points on the board. Stop. They were 16 of 22 tonight. That's 73%. That's not going to cut it in a postseason, especially when it's your guards missing those free throws, right? Josh Hart was 1 for 2. One of those that miss came in the fourth quarter. Jalen Brunson was 4 for 7. He missed twice in the fourth quarter. I will continue to say that Jalen Brunson has no business shooting anything less than 90% at the foul line. The type of scorer he is, shooter, the degree of difficulty that he gets a lot of these jump shots off, there's no reason that he should be an 80% shooter at the line. I think he's even worse than that this postseason. He leaves way too many points on the board because he's not knocking down free throws. Emphasis on the free. It's disgraceful. I'm tired of the Knicks missing foul shots, and I'm tired of them doing it when it counts late in the game. Now, I know some of that's got to be due to tired legs. These guys have been logging minutes, especially Josh Hart and Brunson. They've been laboring out there. But part of your game is getting to the line. You got to execute. And I'm not going to sit here and blame the Zebras, you know. I'm not going to do the whole Philadelphia 76er fan, you know, Indiana Pacer fan thing. You know, I'm not going to do that. Despite, you know, you had Pascal Siakam holding Isaiah Hartenstein there at the end so he couldn't bring help to the lane. You had Miles Turner pushing Dante DiVincenzo out of the way. You know, Dante DiVincenzo getting fouled on the fast break. Brunson being called for the blocking foul when Siakam charged at him. You got the Nemhard fouling. You know, he fouled Brunson about 3 times on one drive. That was overturned to a no foul. You know, the Brunson no call on like 2 straight possessions. You had Brunson being hit in the middle of the fourth on a possession, no call. Deuce McBride got a garbage whistle once. Josh Hart, garbage whistle defending Pascal Siakam. You had the Hart block. Well, not his block, but the Miles Turner block on Josh Hart late in the fourth, which should have been a goaltend, right? Like, there's a lot of things you can go back and pick apart on. I'm not going to sit here and say that was the reason the Knicks lost the game, despite there being dozens on top of dozens of calls that you could have considered, you know, Zebras kind of leaning towards the home team. But I'm not going to sit here and complain about that because the Knicks have to play better. The Knicks didn't play well enough. The Knicks didn't knock down their free throws. They didn't play good enough defense. They didn't play good enough offense at times. So, no, I'm not going to ask the Knicks to file a grievance, or I'm not going to ask the Knicks to cry about 70 missed calls, whatever the fuck that was, by Jim Carrey. No, the Knicks are men. They're coached by a man's man in Tom Thibodeau, and their mentality is going to be to win the next game. So they have to do that. But it was tough. And we're going to talk about some of the factors leading to this loss in just one sec. But we're going to head to our first break, and then we'll get back, talk about some things. Stay with us here on episode 681 of the podcast. Be right back.
Hey there. Thanks for listening in so far. If you enjoy this episode, please give us a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts. And if you're on YouTube, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thanks so much.
Welcome back to the show, episode 681 of the podcast. The Knicks dropped Game 3 in Hickville tonight. 111-106 to the Pacers. It's weird because like the efficiency was fine. They shot very well from the field. 2-point land was fine. 3-point land was great. So the pace was in the Knicks' favor. But there were still points in this game where I thought the offense was very tough to watch. And I think a lot of that was because Jalen Brunson wasn't great. 26 points, 26 shots, 39%. I thought Rick Carlisle did a good job making the adjustment on Brunson defensively. First and foremost, seemed like the Pacers were sending more help to him than they usually did in the first two games. And that, it was difficult for Jalen to get to his spots that way. It just putting more attention on him makes an unhealthy Brunson work extra hard. And I liked, if I'm a Pacer fan, I liked what I saw with the adjustment to put Naismith on Brunson versus Nembhard, right? Put a little bit more length on him to disrupt him from getting to his spots. And Nembhard or Naismith's also a very difficult guard to screen off, right? And I thought the Knicks did a very poor job of screening. It felt like, whether it was Hartenstein or DiVincenzo or Hart or McBride, it felt like the Knicks weren't screening well enough to get Naismith off him. It felt like a lot of the time they were slipping the screen way too early. It was like almost a ghost screen where they would slip it and pop out. But like they weren't holding them long enough. And because of that, they couldn't really get Naismith off of Jalen and get the switch that the Knicks wanted, whether it was a Miles Turner switch or a Halliburton switch. It wasn't often happening, or a Nembhard switch. It was Naismith was doing a nice job fighting through. So I thought that hurt the Knicks. And like early in the game, like they went to the Brunson DiVincenzo 1-3 pick and roll, and it worked. And I thought they should have kept going back to that. The difference between that and the 1-5, the 1-5, the defense could just blitz it. They can send two to the ball, and now you don't really have an outlet. But if you run the 1-3 with Dante, the defense is almost forced to play straight up because now you have two spacers in the action. You got to pick your poison. So I thought they should have went back to that Brunson DiVincenzo pick and roll like they did at times in the first quarter. They didn't really do it much the rest of the way. You might have saw it once or twice in the fourth quarter, but I don't even think you did. I'm trying to think, but I thought they should have went to that more. My problem in this game mostly came from, and I hate to I'm not throwing this game on Tom Thibodeau. I mean, the guy's working with he had to dip into his third unit tonight, right? I mean, let's not. I've never been a fan of Precious at the 4. And Thibs his starting lineup tonight with Anunoby done for probably the postseason, if we get that far. He went with Precious at the 4. I was hoping that he would go with the small ball lineup of McBride at the 2. Where you have 3 shooters around Jalen. You have Dante and Deuce and Jalen. But instead he went with Precious at the 4. So you have the front court of Hart, Precious, Ihart, which is just horrendous for offense. Right? It's very poor spacing. You have 0 outlets. Brunson's already compromised with the foot injury. Now you're asking him to work 3 times as hard. So I get it, because I guess the thought process is Indiana's not very good at exploiting bad spacing anyway. So you take your chances. Again, it's pick your poison, because if you go with Deuce at the 2, you're risking getting outclassed defensively and on the boards. So it's do we get outclassed on the boards and defensively, or do we go with lackluster offense to get better defense, right? Because if you go small, we saw at times when the Knicks did go small tonight, you had the Josh Hart on Siakam mismatch, and it was ugly. Siakam was just pushing him to his spots, and he was scoring on him on the post. And the Knicks have to decide when they have that lineup out there, do they want to send help? And if they send help, they're risking being put in rotation and then being late to a closeout. Or do they want to put the big on Siakam in those lineups to switch the matchup? So, an example of that would be in the 4th quarter, Thibs went to Ihart to put on Siakam, and then he put Josh Hart on Miles Turner. And it worked. I thought that should have been what he did earlier. He should have done that a lot earlier, And you even had times, even when Pascal Siakam was off the floor, Thibs was going to those Precious lineups, like in the 3rd quarter. And the small ball lineups as a whole, I felt like they netted some okay results. I don't know what the numbers were. I got to look at the plus minuses, but just off the top of my head, it felt like those lineups were fine. Like late in the 1st quarter, Brunson, Deuce, Dante, Hart, and Jericho, I thought they were fine minutes, especially the lineup early in the 2nd quarter. Brunson, Burks, Deuce, Hart, and Hartenstein. I thought they gave some solid minutes. And Precious at the 5 was working, especially when you had Isaiah Jackson on the floor. But, late in the game, you saw a lot of people complain about the Knicks. They wanted more defense and size in the game. Should Precious had been on the floor as the 4-man late in the game over Deuce McBride? Especially with the Knicks switching everything this series as much as they've been, should Precious have been in there? Again, I respond with the Knicks also needed buckets at the same time late in the game, and Indiana wasn't providing a ton of offense anyway late. So I just wish I'm never going to be a fan of Precious at the 4, not in the postseason, man. I'm all about, I think the Knicks the number 1 priority should always be centered around Jalen Brunson. It should be about making Brunson have to do less work. And I think the way you do that is you get Deuce out there at the 2 and you slide Dante to the wing. And I think putting Precious at the 4 it not only doesn't make Brunson's life easier, but it makes Brunson's life that much more difficult. So I don't love that. But again, it's pick your poison, and it just shows you how invaluable OG Anunoby is to this team, right? Because OG Anunoby is a two-way guy. He's a guy who you can put out there, and he does give you the size and the defense and the rebounding, and at the same time, he gives you the shooting, the spacing in the half court to where you can run offense without having to worry about that. So not having him, now you're going to have to pick something to sacrifice. So I thought it was tough. Not going to lie. I thought it was a tough lineup to watch, but Thibs went with it, and it netted the results that it netted. And I thought, like you would have thought the rebounding would have been great with those dual post lineups out there. But the Knicks rebounding was a little disgraceful in this game. I don't care that the final numbers weren't anything glaring, but they were enough to lose them the game. There were way too many offensive rebounds allowed. Having Precious and Hartenstein in the front court as much as they did, but still get outclassed by a very soft Indiana Pacer team, kind of embarrassing. Like, you're supposed to be the tougher team, and you are, but like, you played some pretty good half-court defense at the end of the day. They only scored 111. You got to reward that by ending possessions. And you gave them way too many extra possessions late in the fourth quarter. You had a couple of offensive rebounds in one possession, less than 2 minutes left in the game. The Knicks are up a point. Nembhard misses the shot. Hart can't secure it, so Turner ends up with it. The next shot that goes up misses. Turner tips it out. And then you had the offensive rebound later, which led to that Nembhard fluke three-point dagger. So they did not do a good job of ending possessions, and ending possessions was one of their defensive identities in the all season, heading up to tonight. So I thought that was a problem. I thought they were making very poor mistakes defensively. Especially on Halliburton, who finished the game with 35 points. I thought there was a lot of stupid decision-making there. Like, there was a possession in the first half where Dante gets the switch, but he's over-aggressive on the closeout, and I don't know if he was trying to gamble, and it's a bad gamble. He kind of falls to his right a little bit. Hallie's left open, knocks down three. There was another possession where you had a pick and roll with Hart and Precious in the action. Hart goes under the screen. I think he's maybe trying to tag Siakam. And Precious is sticking to Miles Turner because, if Precious comes up, then Turner's just going to slip the screen early, and then Hallie's going to hit the roll. So now Halliburton's wide open and knocks down another three. I thought early in the game, the Knicks were helping off of Halliburton on pick and roll, and that let him get downhill to the basket. Was hurting them there at the cup. I thought Ihart and the Knick guards had some miscommunication on switches where they were peeling off Halliburton early. It was bad. Again, Indiana was spamming the Siakam post-ups on Josh Hart. Siakam finished with 26 points, not a 14 shooting. I thought Thibs waited too long to switch the matchup there. And I thought there was some just really dumb help defense. Like, why at the end there are you helping on Halliburton? If you don't help on Halliburton there and you just go single coverage, he doesn't make that pass to Nembhard. So I think that's it. I think we'll cut this here 30 minutes in. So let's head to our final break. We'll get back and we're going to wrap this up with our trivia question. And that will be that here in episode 681. All right. We're recording this the same night of the game. So we usually don't do that. We usually wait for the next night, but I wanted to get this out because I'm a little behind on the podcast. We had to miss the Yankees episode from the Astros series, unfortunately. But we're going to be back doing Yankees, Tampa Bay Rays. But that's it for 681. We'll head to our final break, get back, and wrap it up with our trivia. Stay with us.
You can follow us on social media as well. On Instagram, we're at BD4Pod and at Rob J. Carbone. On X, we're at BD4Pod and at RJCBD4. And on Facebook, we're BD4. If you're interested in our website, just go to www.bd4blog.com. You can subscribe to our blog on there right on the front page. Just like on the podcast, we cover Yankees, Knicks, and MMA. Also on our website are the links to the different platforms for the podcast. Thanks so much.
Studio 69 Productions is a podcast production agency created by Leo Rodriguez to allow content creators to market their podcast. It's an online platform that will market your podcast or any other project that you're working on. Get in touch with Leo Rodriguez from Studio 69 Productions. You can find Studio 69 Productions on Instagram at Studio69NJ. Studio 69 Productions, where dreams are heard and born.
Thanks for listening to BD4, where there is no better way to get your Yankees and Knicks analysis. We also do MMA, Yanks every series, Knicks every game, and MMA on occasion.
Okay, welcome back to the show. Episode 681 of the podcast. I appreciate you all tuning in. The Knicks dropped Game 3 in Hickville. Man, 111-106. Tough loss. You hope that it can improve. Again, I'm not going to lie to you. I'm not that impressed with Indiana. I think they're a pretty bad basketball team. I from the start of the season, I was never impressed with them. I think they're incredibly soft. I think they're not a good defensive team, and I think their offense isn't sustainable, as we saw tonight. I just, at the same time, they're running into a Knicks team where, I've lost count. 5 regulars are gone, and Jalen Brunson is, 70%? How much longer can this keep going? That's my only concern here. At the end of the day, I think the Knicks are the better team on paper, but every one of these games has been so taxing on them, going back to Game 1 against the Philadelphia 76ers up to tonight. Every single one of these games has been so intense, and it's always come down to the last friggin' couple minutes. Every single one. So, now you're asking Brunson to do it without OG Anunoby. That's the latest. Who's going to be tomorrow or Sunday? Who's going down next? Because somebody will. Because that's how this shit works. It's just the type of season that the Knicks have had to endure. So whoever it is that goes down next, let's just hope they come back, because I'm getting a little bit tired of OG Anunoby not being out there. I'll put it that way. I just hope come the off season, whenever that does come, he realizes, hey, maybe I should take a little bit of a discount, because I'm not often out there for my team. I think that's it. So, like I said, let's get to our trivia question. Wrap this thing up. Let's go. Okay. Here we are, episode 681. Our trivia question for this episode is: Jalen Brunson has now completed 20 playoff games with the Knicks. In how many has he finished with less than 25 points? Jalen Brunson has now completed 20 playoff games with the Knicks. In how many has he finished with less than 25 points? I'll give you a hint. It's not many. All right, so one final time. Jalen Brunson has now completed 20 playoff games with the Knicks. In how many has he finished with less than 25 points? Let me know the answer wherever you can reach me. If you get the answer correct, I'll give you a shout out on the next show in front of all 2 of our listeners. I appreciate you all tuning in, though. That's going to be it for 681. We'll be back in 682. I'm not sure if that's going to be Yanks Rays or Knicks Pacers Game 4. We'll see what we can get to first, but we will get to both of them. Appreciate you all. Appreciate you all. Whether you are listening to the podcast on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, or watching the video format of this podcast on Spotify or YouTube, I do appreciate it, and I thank you very much. That's going to do it for this show. Episode 681 in the books. I'm your host, RJ Carbone, and I'll see you in the next episode. Later. This episode was brought to you by Anchor.
Hey there! If you stayed the entire way through, we thank you immensely for it. We hope you enjoyed this podcast and that you come back for the next episode real soon. Don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, download these episodes, and share them with your friends as well. BD4 is a 5-star podcast simply because of you. And we'd like to keep it that way. Have a wonderful day. Go Yankees and go Knicks!